this on my computer. Wants to watch the recording or somebody else does. I forgot to do that. So you guys have to start over again. No, I'm just kidding. All right, go over here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Schaefer. I kind of got interested in the trip because my dad mentioned that it was going on, and it's a country I haven't been to yet, and I'm very, very excited to learn more about like the culture and how Martin Luther kind of reformed the area in a
Yes.
very big way. It also helps that I get to hang around with these two guys again.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
right. You guys were on an Africa trip.
Yeah, we're on the African trip together, so this will be our next big adventure. So,
Awesome.
looking forward to
So
it.
excited you're going. So that's cool. Especially since I don't get to see you much because you're working on some days all the time.
Yeah, my weekends are Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah,
I
I know.
get nothing.
I know. So anyway, I'm so thankful you're gonna be with us. Yeah.
So I'm Tom Hawks. I hang out with Marilyn a lot for the last 45, 50, 60 years. Something like that. I spent a lot of time in Germany as well. And we've even been to some of the places we're going on this trip, specifically Wittlich and a few of those places. Wittenberg. And I'm looking forward to two things. One is, of course, filling in the blanks that what we know or don't know about Martin Luther, especially in that area. And second of all, I really enjoy introducing Americans to gast houses and beer and schnitzel. Fantastic things. Mark will be with me every step of the way. So I'm looking forward to it again, getting back. I lived there a long time too.
Yeah.
Just like Marilyn.
You were stationed
In
there?
Heidelberg
I
for a
don't know.
long time.
Okay. Did you mention what branch of the service you were in? So
No, I didn't mention.
since George, I think,
I was in the senior service, the United States Army.
perfect. Great. All right. Well, you know, and we'll get to George and Sam in just a minute, but we'll just keep going.
Hi, Zan and George. I'm Amy. I'm excited to go on this trip. My father's side of the family, actually, my grandparents came over from Germany and they're very strict Lutherans, so it'd be nice to see how it all started.
Strict.
Oh, I have something to show you.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. That's good. Thank you.
I'm Andrew. I'm Sam. I'm excited to go on the trip. It's nice that people who know what they're doing have planned a good itinerary and kind of know what to see. They don't have to do the work of figuring out what to see. It's already set.
Already done for you.
Yeah, and also being able to like just put imagery and visuals with everything you hear about from the Reformation, everything that's going on.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like when we always hear about the 95 Theses, you know, and the Wittenberg door. Now that's the church that he put that on burnt down. That was one of the, I don't know, it's the 30 or more or whatever, but they rebuilt it and they got these big, beautiful brass doors. But the town church where he preached is still there. It's the exact spot that he preached. And when I was there, whatever, however many years ago now, I can't believe it's been so long, but I got to preach from that pulpit. I get kind of a blow away for me. All right, thank you, Andrew. Going back to the other team.
I'm Julie Harbaugh. I rarely get excited about anything anymore. It's not a word in my
We're gonna help you with
I
that.
did go on the Germany trip and it's like what we said, of just bring it all to life. I mean,
You mean
like
Israel?
I mean, the Israel trip. Well, like when we were walking down the hill and someone said, there's the Garden of Gethsemane. It's like, it does exist.
Yeah,
And I just wanna, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I was, my maiden name was Pegelkopf. My mother's name was Zebarth. Nobody can tell me what those mean in German, so maybe we'll find that out.
love it, Julie. And you know, you bring up something really important, whether it's with our Lord and his journey, his walk, but just to get your feet on close to the same ground or just
Yeah.
about that, it just gives you a rootedness. It's hard to explain, but, and that'll happen with the Reformation on this trip, I think, yeah.
I think that's exactly, I can think back of, I went on the Israel, Denise. I went on the Israel trip also, and to have those stories that I have seen heard about as a young child come to life and actually be able to now have a picture in my mind, other than just a picture out of a book, it's been so powerful. And I'm looking forward to the same kind of revelation
Yeah.
to, the Reformation and Martin Luther. And I'm an old music teacher, and so going to Bach and Handel's birthplace also inspires me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Very cool.
Well, I'm Debbie, one of the Deb. And I had looked at going on the trip at the beginning of the year and thought, I had things going on and stuff, and Debbie came up to me Wednesday, and by that evening I said, sure, I'll go. But I'm excited about a lot of things that I'm gonna take in the whole ball of wax, the history, the art, the architecture, Martin Luther, the food, the beer, all of it. I'm ready for, everything.
Cool.
The beer.
And I'm another Debbie, Debbie White. And I also was raised very strict Lutheran. And I hope my grandma's listening to this. Because Martin Luther was like a household word.
Mhm.
And I thought for a while that he was an uncle. So it'll be fun to learn, and this is kind of a test to see if my brain is still working.
Yeah, it is, and
Good.
we're gonna help
Because
you.
the
with that.
learning is just unbelievable. I went to Israel and it was pretty special.
Very cool. All right, so why don't we go to the folks who are remoting in? And obviously we know George and Zan Raymond. So welcome to the tour gang. But yeah, tell us a little about your church and what you're excited about.
Well, I'm Zan, this is George. We we attend the church at the mill at Lake Cooley. It's mostly Baptist, but I grew up there in the Baptist church. So this is exciting for me to learn more about Lutheran. This is our second trip again through faith-based expeditions. We loved going to Greece last year. And like the other lady said, it's just amazing to walk where Paul walked there. And so here we're going to be going through where Lutheran walked and where he preached. And that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, cool, thank you. George, you want to add anything, or are you good?
I'm good. I just do what she tells me.
Smart man, no, and I'm so thankful that you guys are attending. I know we're in a Lutheran church, but we're so thankful to have people from other expressions of the faith, and our differences we will treat with great respect and care. So anyway, God bless you for jumping in. They're a good group of folks, I tell you, all right? That's cool. Emily, are you able to chime in from your phone or wherever?
Good morning, or I guess good afternoon. Yes, I am. Sorry I called in late. In between softball games at the moment. So I'm looking forward to the trip. To spend time with my mom, but also learn about history because we are German, so learn about that history and learn about Lutheran history as well. And hopefully Tom can teach me a thing or two about beer and schnitzel.
Wine.
Wine.
And
Well, wine was Italy.
Don't worry, guys.
But very excited to learn everything.
That's cool. Thank you, Emily. I can introduce my wife, Sandy, Gessner Crabtree, who is attending, as she's attending to her mother right now. Who's just not doing so great, but anyway, so she brings you greetings. I'm sure she's excited to hear me, talk about Martin Luther, because she never gets to know. I'm sure. Okay. Well, thank you. That's beautiful. All right. So we will also, I'll be sending out a list of everybody that's going. You'll be getting more stuff in that regard. You should. So let me just do a few housekeeping things now, and then we'll do a little quick education. As I call it. Has everyone got their air travel taken care of?
It's in the works. Mine's in the works.
Debbie's, Debbie's gonna get and
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna-
both Debbies are gonna get their information.
We're working on it.
So
Whatever it is.
Marilyn has a friend who's a travel agent who helped us on our end get things set up. And we don't have to do this now, but I think at some point it would be cool if we could all maybe pitch in and give her a thank you, something. Yeah, so it's just something for us to think about, because that really saved us a lot of work. We just, okay, we got it. So, but if you've got your own air and you're going earlier or whatever, that's fine. But this way, most of us will be on the same flight out of Seattle. So I'm glad you got that. Does everybody, I know Russ is really good with this, and I know Debbie, this will be a challenge for one of the Debbies with the passport. Does anybody know what the expedited passport time is right now?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, 4 weeks, which is good. So you could
Yeah,
still,
the regular one is 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm
you-
cutting it close.
you don't want to cut it that close. So, one of our Israel trips, someone had a problem with their passport. I happen to know someone that works for our congressman and we got it done, so that was. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, we did this in May and it wasn't expedited, but it was only 4 weeks too.
It was 4 weeks, yeah. And it's likely that it would be 4 weeks, but you probably don't want to. Chance it. Especially if that's, so I'm so excited you guys are jumping in at this point. Someone asked me, if it's too late to someone else asked me it's too late, and I don't know that it's gonna work out for them now, but. I would say like maybe this week, if you talk to anybody or whatever, I talked to Russ and he said. You know, they gotta get in there soon because we're gonna let go of the hotels, hotel rooms, so.
Hairstyle.
Okay, well, so we gotta get on that right
I
away.
gave her the brochure yesterday.
I would love it. That's cool. Okay, so there's that little housekeeping detail. Get your air, make sure you have your passport. Yeah, Russell will wanna have a copy of all of that, and he does a great job with that. Let's see. Other just questions about just logistics and travel. When we get closer, we'll talk about whether we want to carpool or some people need to carpool maybe, or however you want to do that. We can do that. We've I'll zero in maybe with you and we'll make sure we got travel to and fro, you know.
Right. Well, it looks like originally, when it was a small group, we were on our own. That's why I sent out all that information about how we were gonna get from the Berlin airport to our hotel. But now Russ, in the newest, that information that Russ sent out, they're picking us up.
Oh, wonderful.
That's what it
Oh,
says.
see, I missed that. All right, well,
And
I think, yeah, and I know that's really true for George and Zan too.
we are.
Is that what you
we're on
read, Zan?
Lufthansa, which is United.
Yes, I believe
And-
so.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because we're gonna get there really early.
Yeah.
Before everybody else.
Yes, because they have
Super.
West Coast.
Yeah, we're West Coast. We're a little different time, yeah.
Now, where are you coming from?
Yeah, where are you coming from?
Oh, Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is near Greenville, the upstate.
Yeah,
That's a real pretty.
it's a pretty area.
Pretty area, so some of our folks know the area. That's cool. Love it. Okay, any other like logistic kind of questions? If not, I'm gonna share actually, let me just do this. Not by email.
Hope you don't have any problems.
Huh?
Hope you don't have any trouble with
It's a graduation. I don't know whose graduation it is. Where'd all my work go? That's weird. All right, I'll find it. Just hold on, guys, just a second. way too busy a morning here. Let's see. Okay, Bill, so if you go to here, go to this.
About restaurants. So we have to have a nice quality before the sales.
And let's go
So
to,
we can be relatively.
let's go over to Lutheran. Let's go to.
Okay, so.
Oh, that's because I'm in the wrong spot, okay?
Two pair of waterproof. Bill, while you're looking, I'll just make one comment.
Please, please.
Two pair of waterproof shoes. Don't wear your tennis shoes. They're gonna get wet, soaked and nasty. I mean, and you want that.
Dry out.
The shoes that dry, but like hiking, lightweight hiking boots or something like that are really nice. And something with a real good grip on wet cobblestones.
So good grip on wet cobblestone
And waterproof.
and waterproof.
And now
Okay,
watch, it'll be sunny the whole way.
like here.
Well, we never know. August here. No.
Fascinating. Where can my document go?
Marilyn,
What?
tell them what you said about Lufthansa doesn't charge for extra baggage.
No. So because you're flying international, there's automatically, first of all, that you're automatically given a free bag. A free suitcase, checked bag, that's what I'm trying to say. Now, they're very strict sometimes about the size of your carry-on. And the fact that in our group that's coming from Lufthansa to Frankfurt and then to Berlin, we're gonna be on a smaller plane, probably with smaller overheads. So you don't want one of those big roller boards, but they're just real strict about it, and they'll oftentimes weigh it. I mean, it's like, hello,
Well,
but
they
they
do
are.
that on small planes within the states.
Oh,
too.
yeah,
That
it
take
could be all right.
that's what I
But
was
just look at
asking.
the measurements.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But
Standard,
there's no charge.
standard, yeah, standard carry-on size. They have like,
Yeah.
measurements, yeah.
Can't find it?
You can, that's fine.
Heard of them.
I apologize profusely. I've spent a long time on this wonderful presentation. And this is my laptop. Okay, so I'll just think of that. This is my laptop. Let's open up PowerPoint here.
Is it one of the more recent ones?
Yeah, the recent.
What recent?
You
Sure.
scroll down,
How
scroll
about-
down,
Scroll
in the
down.
middle, where it says recent right there, this is the rest of your list.
Yes.
So scroll down,
Yeah,
it'll probably be in there if you were to read.
but it should be right at the top. So I just did
That
it
is
last
the
night.
presentation at the top.
Am I,
Are you on your?
on this computer or am I zoomed into another? Let's see. No.
Okay, I have a question for you,
All
Marilyn.
right, keep going with your questions. Hang in there with me.
Yes,
From Munich to.
you're gonna want to travel as light. And if you've got one of those big ones, no, I'm not talking big, I'm talking
common.
22
Common
inch.
or not, I can't remember.
That's too big. Where are you going?
Frankfurt. Munich does all, or we'll take our family will pick us up in Munich.
Nice, so you just go in Frankfurt to Munich. I would just like a big bag and worry about how you're gonna get it on there, because it's not gonna be so crowded in this time of the year.
There's still a place for you to put your bag once you come into the coach.
Yeah, but there's sometimes.
Oh.
Maybe it's saved under OneDrive.
He said, take the ice train.
Yeah.
Oh,
The advancement.
Reformation.
So we do make that.
Usually I cannot.
Oh.
I can just start talking, but I have some cool stuff. for you to look at, So, give me just one more second.
If you want to start talking, I can search your computer for you. You've been talking.
You could.
I could.
So, yeah, how would we do that? Come on up.
Start talking. What's it, journey or reformation?
Yeah, try Reformation. Something I did recently. Okay, so while Brian searches for this wonderful presentation, I will just start talking. So I just want to do, the first thing is I want to front load.
Is that it right up there?
Because as you, those of you who have been to Greece or Israel, when you go to these sites and the tour, we'll have a tour guide. Now, in this case, I've not done this tour before. I've been to Germany myself and stuff, but I haven't done this exact itinerary. Faith-based expeditions this is a newer venue. How did you do that? It's so lovely.
It was right there.
You can tell me later, what you can hear. I have to say, I have to do it a different way. Thank you.
Don't let him touch it.
I need to do not, I need to do duplicate and not display settings. There we go, duplicate. Okay. And then now go back to, did we lose? No, there we go. Now I'll do this. And now I'll share a screen. We are in business. Thank you be to God. All right, and we're gonna put you guys up in the corner. There we go. And most of the time, by the way, George and Zan, I'm gonna try and most of my slides, I have a little space up on the right. So if you wanna put the Zoom box over there and you can see the PowerPoint stuff. So I like to front load things, as you've heard. And this in the background is the town church. In German, it is called the
Kirche, something.
Kirche,
Kirche.
but town and then town.
Stadtkirche?
There it is. That's it.
Stadtkirche.
And those towers, those were there in the 1500s when Luther was there. So that's and I got a great sunset picture when I was there last. So that's exciting and cool. So I love to front load. Because when you get there, you just get so much information and it goes, whoo. So if I can kind of make spaces for you in your mind and thinking, so you have someplace to put stuff when you get there. So what we're going to do in these pre-trip meetings is we are going to go through Luther's life. And I'm going to, I think, what do we got? 6 of them, something that we can do, something like we do every other week. And I know that's something we have to talk about, but so that you've got it fresh in your mind. And when all this stuff comes at you and you hear about people like, Staupitz, who's that? You're going to know about Staupitz, and you're going to know about Zwingli, and you're going to know about Philip Melanchthon and some of these other great players, and Calvin, and, so I want to give you that so it'll sink in when you go. So we're going to do a little bit of front loading. We got about 25 minutes here, and we'll do as much as we can. So, but before I jump quite into that, I want to tell you a little about Luther and my story. Why personally this is important to me. So, and I can do this fairly quickly. I grew up in a Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod congregation. It was a great upbringing. I learned the gospel. I had youth group experiences that really helped me develop a personal relationship with Christ. My pastor always said, your faith is always personal, but never private. And so I really came to love Jesus growing up in my Lutheran church. And when I got to college, I went on a little baseball scholarship to play baseball at California Lutheran University. It's near the beach. I grew up in Phoenix, so it's like, come on, let's go. So, so baseball was okay. That was fine. But when I got there, I had also, some of you may have even listened to Keith Green's music. He was right in the beginning of the Christian pop music kind of music industry that's so huge now. Amazing musician, but he was very hardcore Christian. And he basically said to me, you got to be all in or you're not in at all. I think one of his famous passages was, from one of his favorites was from Revelation, where Jesus says to the one church, you're neither hot nor cold, you're lukewarm, and I'll spit you out of my mouth, this type of thing. And I was like, I don't want to be lukewarm. So, and I don't want to be, so I was gonna, I love Jesus and I knew the gospel and I grew up in the church. And so I was going to, be a all-in Christian, and which is great. But I kind of burn out. I hit ground because I could never do enough. And, and in our Lutheran, you're going to be hearing about this distinction Luther loved to talk about, is this law gospel distinction. There's law and there's gospel. God speaks to us in two words. One is law, commands, demands, do this. And another one is the gospel, which is always what God has done for us, given to us freely. And so I didn't know that distinction very well. And so when I had voices in my life that said, do this, I wanted to do it. Because I wanted to be, I love Jesus. So and I burn out. And I've run into a lot of people who burn out. Because as Luther will say in one of his first writings, the Heidelberg Disputation, he says, the law says do this, and it's never done. The gospel or grace says, believe this, and it's done already. If I wouldn't have gone back and read Luther in college, and then I went on into seminary, and it gave life back to my faith. I wouldn't be here, not just my Lutheran upbringing, but because I kind of left the Lutheran stuff for a while, but I just, that experience of knowing the distinction between those two, which we'll talk more, really saved my faith. And so Luther became really important to me. And as I read Luther, I just go, wow. Now, the first thing I'm going to say right out of the gate, and I think all of you know this, hopefully, Luther, we do not worship Luther. We can call him a hero of our faith because of what God used him to do in the church. But Luther would be the first to say he is nothing more than a sainted sinner, just like you and me. Philip Melanchthon, his kind of right-hand man, called him in his eulogy after Luther died a prophet. Luther wouldn't have been comfortable with that either. In fact, his last words before he died was, "We are beggars." That's what he said. That's what he wrote. That was his last words. We are but beggars. And so we don't, Luther said and did things that, we really regret. We'll talk about some of that. But he definitely was somebody that God's Spirit used to restore the gospel in the church. And that's why he's important. Luther also has probably had more written about him than any other human being other than Jesus Christ. Truly. Luther, and just Luther's works alone in English, there's all kinds that have never even been translated into English. We still have German Luther works that haven't, but if you can probably, I know folks at home, but if the bookcase started there, Luther works would go to here. I have them all on my computer now, which is fun. I can search them in a second. I can't find my PowerPoint. I can do that. So an amazing figure, and the Reformation is the themes and the things that happened 500 years ago are still as relevant today as they were then. Okay, so that's the other thing. So I hope we're gonna have fun, we're gonna learn, and I hope that it'll also be a true blessing to your faith. So let's front load a little bit, as much as we can. This is a picture of Wittenberg from way back hundreds of years ago of what the town looked like back in the day. Old copy of Luther's works. I took a picture of that in Wartburg Castle, I think. This is a picture, that artwork much later of Luther, on the 95 Theses and whatnot. So we're going to make some connection. And so this here is the Luther's grave in the castle church. Even though the castle church was destroyed, his grave was not. So, you know, he was buried underneath the floor there. When we get to the end of his life, we'll see that the Emperor Charles came and reconquered Wittenberg after Luther died, and came to the Luther's tomb, and there's a beautiful piece of art I'll show you. The Pope wanted him to dig up his remains and destroy it and just get rid of it. And Charles said, I don't deal with dead people. And he left him there. So he's still buried there. So that's kind of a cool little fun tidbit story. Here's some things. Luther was born in 1483 or thereabouts. Might have been 1482, 48, I forget whether it's 83 and 84 or 82 and 8. And they didn't keep that great a track back then. But that's when Luther, that's what he was thinking, that's what they think. This is the house. I think they believe that where he was born in Eisleben. Am I saying that right?
Eisleben?
Eisleben.
I'm guessing Eisleben.
Yeah, Eisleben would be, yeah. This is a portrait of his mother and his father. They didn't smile on those portraits, right? And Luther, and so let me just tell you a little bit about his childhood. And you're gonna hear a lot from Martin Breck. He has a 3-volume thing of the Reformation. And I know I sent out an email with Jim Nessigan's little book on that. That's a must. Martin Luther, A Life. And we, for those in-house, we have like 4 copies in our library right now. So you can grab one before you go. I don't think we're checking out books. I think you just take it. It's honor system. I think that's what's going on right now. So, but Martin Breck, really great work. And so you'll hear a lot from him. On the following his birth, the 11th of November, Luther was baptized in the Church of St. Peter and Paul, the parish church of the Bridges Quarter, presumably by the pastor Bartholomew, however you say his name, and was given the name of the saint of the day, Martin. And so that was the tradition that you got your name when you were baptized. Both his birth as well as his death in the same city instead had to do with the episodic circumstances of his life. Luther died in 1546 in the elegant house of the Droxted family next to St. Andrew's Church while attempting to achieve settlement between the estranged counts of Mansfield. So I think it's kind of cool and ironic that Luther died not doing some big theological treatise, but trying to get these 2 civic leaders to get along and figure it out. That's kind of cool. In St. Andrew's Church, he delivered his final sermons. There also, he was laid out in death. And so I think that's one of the spots we'll see. But so this is some about his childhood. Yet Luther later frequently mentioned that he was a farmer's son and came from a peasant background. His ancestors had been genuine peasants. He was just as conscious of these roots as he was of what seemed to him the miraculous event that he, the man from really insignificant and simple peasant circumstances, had been made the doctor of Holy Scriptures and the Pope's antagonist. You know, he was like, I can't believe that I wound up doing what I did. All right, so let's talk about his family and copper mining. So Luther you would say his family was kind of farmers, peasants, but at that time, the copper industry was really getting rolling. And his father was in the business, went into the business, transitioned from farming into copper mining. Now, there were 2, just like today, what do you need if you're going to start a business? Financing. Financing. And so there were folks that owned the whole thing and people that loaned money to people to work the mine and do that. And that's what Luther's did. He did not own the land or didn't own, what wasn't the financing. He was a business operator. So yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. I grew up, my mom and dad ran their own business and I watched the business work while I was growing up. And it was a great learning experience, and that's what Luther, his life was. And what we find out is, and so, yeah, this Brecht tells us the distinction. There is a distinction between inherited smelters, there's the German word, which were owned by the smelt masters and for which they paid only a fixed tax to the counts of Mansfield, and the smelters which the smelt masters leased from the counts. Hans Luther was such a leaseholder, so he held a lease and he was in the copper mining business. Now, what do you need in addition to financing if you have a business?
Workers.
You need workers. And then when the problems arise and you have this civil person wants this and that, and then you get sued and this and that and all, or you got all the problems, what do you need?
A lawyer.
A lawyer
Family.
in the family.
Yeah.
It helps. Luther was an incredibly bright student, incredible. You know, by the end of his life, he had the entire book of Psalms memorized. People don't, I can't even, he knew Latin, Greek, German, and Hebrew. Okay. Hebrew and Greek well enough to translate the Bible and create the German language. We'll get to culturally, Luther today is probably known more for creating the German language than for the religious Reformation stuff. But we'll talk about the current culture in Germany and stuff. So, but he obviously knew Latin as a priest and he knew German. And so, because Latin was the language of the church. So, you need a lawyer. And Luther was like, okay, this is where he's headed. So now with that little tidbit, let's go back to the slide here. The sources show that Hans Luther, his dad, knew how to pursue his interests stubbornly, even before the miners' court of justice when necessary. This was the time when Martin, then a student at Erfurt, was classified as wealthy. So that's when he's going to law school. In 1507, it was possible for his father to come with 20 horsemen to his son's first mass. So Luther, you're going to obviously realize that he didn't go on and be a lawyer. Something happened, and we'll talk about that. But when Luther was ordained and did his first mass, father showed up with 20 horsemen and had enough to give the monastery a big gift. But however, this favorable situation was of limited duration, because what happens in markets? You owe all this money, you've leased this property, to go. Well, what happens if the copper price goes? The difficulties resulted at least partially from high taxes and an oversupply of copper on the European market. Hans Luther's dependence upon the trading company ultimately became so great that his entire finances were taken over by the management of the trading company, and he was paid only 50 gulden to support himself. Apparently, the output of his smelter was not good enough for him to pay off his debts. So, wealthy for a while, did not last. So what happens for Martin Luther with this legal thing? Well, one more little note on Luther and his relationship with his dad. A lot of people this is something you're not going to get too much from me. I was a psych major actually, but I'm not going to use psychology to go back and try and look at Luther's relationship with his dad and did that make him this way or that way, or his mom wasn't this or that. You wouldn't believe the stuff that's been written. It's been crazy. It's amazing. It's nice conjecture. It might be entertaining. I'm not really going to do that. I think that's way beyond what we can really get at. We have to just take the Luther we've got in our writings and in history. But Luther, after his father's death, remembered the good times with him and testified that next to God, all I am and have he owed to his father's love. To him, the best legacy he received from his father was the education which he had made possible. So his dad sent him off to law school, gave him an education, he got all this, but then Luther switched gears. Now, does that make dad happy?
No.
No. So a lot of people speculate. You hear about this famous thunderstorm. And you may have heard the legend, maybe not. So it's really cool. I can tell you about it. But I've talked about his education in law school. Well, Luther, this is what most people don't know this. Luther fell and you had a knife that you kept. He fell and he cut himself and I think nicked an artery. And he almost bled to death. He was like, had to hold, and it was touch and go, and he almost died. Now, we don't get the sense from Luther's own writing that this was as big a traumatic thing as the next thunderstorm that he got caught in. But a lot of people say Luther was going to law school and then this thunderstorm happened and he prayed to say, Saint Anne to save him and he'd be a monk. If you get me through this, I'll be a monk. I think it's very likely he had been thinking about it. He was a devout Catholic because everybody was. And if you wanted to really follow Jesus in Luther's time, you became a monk or a nun. And this is something Luther will be highly critical. And in fact, so much so that all the monasteries empty. And then he has to find the nunneries. The reformers, did you know that the reformers, one of their biggest problems, their biggest challenges was finding husbands for all these nuns that left the monastery. Because of the Reformation, because it was thought, if I do this, if I'm a nun or I'm a monk, I'm doing good and God's gonna accept me more. Maybe I'll spend less time in purgatory, or I'm building up merit for myself. So if I really want to be a good follower of Jesus, that's what you do. Well, of course, because of the Reformation themes, the monasteries didn't fare so well. And so Luther had to do that. Okay, that was a little tangent. So I think Luther was thinking about it, but have you ever been in a thunderstorm? Well, I know we had a good one last night. However, the lightning goes and you count, right? 1,001, 1,002, 1,000. What did you get to? I got to like 8 once. You got a 5. So 5 miles away. I guess that's what they say, something like that. At least that's what Boy Scouts reach. Have you ever been in one where the lightning goes and the thunder, boom, bang, boom, bang, boom, bang? I remember in the White Mountains in Arizona running for my life to jump into the porch of my cabin. I thought I was literally going to die. It scared the what out of me. Well, this is what Luther gets caught in. And in Germany, you have these kind of storms sometimes. That's why we have to have waterproof shoes. But so Luther was scared and he prayed to Saint Anne and he made and back in the days. This is something else Lutherans don't do anymore, but Roman Catholics do. They pray to saints to intercede for them. They see it as like you and me ask each other, will you pray for me? And so I might ask you to pray for me. Well, they're asking the saints to pray. And Luther said, not in the scriptures. We go right to Christ. We don't need that. But at that time, again, he's Roman Catholic. So he prays to Saint Anne that he survived this. And if he does, he'll be a monk. And he survived. And Luther was good on his word. And he turned in his law books. And Dad was like, oh yeah, no problem. I've just spent all this money for my business. So when he does get ordained and his dad comes with the writers to give that gift, Luther was so nervous because he was so awestruck by what he was doing that he kind of fumbled things. And his short conversation with his son was in essence, I hope it was God and not the devil that called you into it. Later, pretty heavy, huh, Tom? I haven't said anything like that to my child. But later, Luther will reflect and he says straight up, I broke the commandment, honor your father and mother. This was not right. I did wrong to become a monk. Now, then he goes right along and says, but God delivered me out of the monk thing and made me a servant of the gospel. So God worked it all out. But he will say, the commandments supersede what, so it's interesting. Were you going to say something, Tom? No, good. Okay, so that's the famous lightning bolt, the storm that changed history. And the other things that probably were going through Luther's head is what else, I've got it up here, so you've got it, but what else is going on in Europe at this time? The plague. Luther had 2 of his law students die from the plague that he knew personally. He had, the people were dying. And so death was like it was there. And so he's scared of death. And I want to take care of death, so I'm gonna become a monk. Because I want to be okay. You see the works righteous stuff coming in there? But there's another reality that you gotta put on the plate. Those of you know your history. What was happening right around that time? There was a whole nother country, group, civilization bearing down on Europe. Ottoman Empire. Yeah, the Turks. Yeah, the Turks. They came right to the gates of Vienna. And so you've got that happening, which, by the way, if that wouldn't have happened, if that reality wouldn't have been there, the Reformation may never have started. Because Emperor Charles was so preoccupied with that he didn't have time to mess around with this, as the Pope called Luther, a wild boar in God's vineyard. So, yeah.
Whether several other things might have triggered, not triggered the Reformation.
Yeah.
Going on with other reformists were regularly hauled up by the Catholic Church and burned at the stake.
So, Tom, you are the most famous of which was Johann Huss, I believe,
Yeah.
who was
Yeah.
which country was he in?
Switzerland or?
Wasn't Switzerland, but anyway, it's just not coming, but anyway. There was a guy named Huss who said many of the same things Luther said and was promised safe conduct, went to the meeting. He was arrested and burned at the stake. He supposedly, and this was written down. So he supposedly said, today you have burned something like I don't want to use some analogy like a duck, but God will raise up a goose after me. This is supposedly what John Huss said. So you want to know what one of the symbols, if you see some, you might see some as we go, you'll see Luther and you'll see a big goose.
Really?
It's because Luther was the goose that came. Now, that's what supposedly, I forget where the writing comes from that talks about John Huss saying that. But yes, so yes, there was that going on. There was that going on. And then, we're going to talk about Rome, what was going on in Rome. We're going to also talk about the building of St. Peter's and how that problem, all those things were going on. All right, so his childhood, basically pretty straightforward, normal. We're gonna finish up now because it's 1 o'clock. And I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff here, but I want to get enough. Let me just see what else I was gonna say. Let's see.
Martin Luther have any siblings?
Yes, he did.
What happened to him?
We think one brother died early,
Younger?
but I can't say how many exactly, but I know there was a pretty good family, 5, 6 kids, something like that.
Whatever.
Because that was pretty typical. I think what we see from Luther's early life is that in addition to all those factors, he had a very intense introspective conscience. This word that you see right here in the third line, affectum, is like this inner dread. Some people call it depression. It's not really, it's that, but it's worse in the sense that it's this. Let's just say this, Luther had a very intense inner critic of himself. And that made him often feel this dread that he's never good enough and nothing, when he enrolled became a monk, his fellow brothers in the Augustinian monastery there couldn't stand him because he outdid all of their work 20-fold. It's like he's making us look bad. So he was intense. This is the story of the big storm. Let's finish with Luther's actual own words here. This is kind of what I was referring to. I was made a monk by my own power against the will of my father and mother, of God and the devil. For in my monastic life, I honored the Pope with such reverence that I would defy all papists who have lived or still live to outdo me. So you can see there's that inner drive and inner critic. I took the vow, not for the sake of my belly, but for the sake of my salvation, and I observed all our statutes very strictly. He believed this was an issue of salvation. And so that's really important. So that's where we are in the story, you know, and we'll pause there. Again, some resources for you if you wanna, that Martin Luther, A Life by Jim Nestigan. Another really great, one volume that's kind of, I know Russ sent out, and somebody already read it. I haven't had a chance to read what Faith Expedition sent, but there's another one by Timothy Lowell and his student, but if you just put in Timothy Lowell, and it's The Resilient Reformer.
How do you spell his last name?
Lowell is Lull, yeah. And I forget, it's two authors, but it's called The Resilient Reformer. It's got a little bit of a different picture of Luther on the front. I've got it electronically, so you can do it electronically. That's really good. If you've read tons, there's another really cool book called Brand, B-R-A-N-D, Luther. And it takes a look at it through the eyes of the printing press. Because that's the other thing that's happened right around then, is the printing press had just been, and the number one, I'm spilling all my really cool factoids, but the number one industry for the printing press, what do you think it might have been?
Pamphlets.
Not the Bible yet.
Oh, no,
Pamphlets.
it's those things.
Not yet,
No,
not
no, the things where you pay to get somebody out of purgatory. What's?
Oh,
indulgences.
No,
Number one thing.
Wow.
yeah,
Moneymaker for the printing presses were these indulgences that of course start the Reformation with Luther, so objects to. But that was the number one moneymaker, but guess what replaced it? Because he got, he totally threw a monkey wrench into that. Luther, Brand Luther. You know that Luther never made 1 penny on anything he wrote, and everything.
A lot of intellectual property.
A lot of intellectual property, exactly. A lot, almost everything he did and said was written down. So, anyway, all right, that's enough. So excited to meet George and Zan and Emily. Well, she probably had to go play her game. So, great to see you guys. Blessings, and I'm thinking this time slot about every other week. I didn't send out a schedule yet, right?
No.
You'll get a schedule from me very short. Okay, one last thing, Tom.
That word you had in the previous slide.
Affectum,
Looks like obsessive compulsive.
this one right here.
Yeah. Unfit.
Onfectum, that's the way you say it. Yeah. Onfectum. This was Luther's thing. All right, George and Zan, thank you. Let me stop my share screen.
in front of this was a check.
What's that?
Yeah.
The checks are welcome.
Yeah.
Great to meet you guys.
Somewhat.
Have a good, it's probably dinner time there.
We already said that.
All right, take care. Have a good day.
And then.